Hello everyone, and welcome to the UBA Season 3 Week 2 Power Rankings. The same as usual, just ranking teams where I see each one fit to be as of Week 2 in the season. I just realized that that's the old logo. I might want to update that. Doesn't have the Tier 3 Gudra. But anyways, also I remembered, I forgot to, not even forgot, I mentally acknowledged that the teams at the bottom are out of date due to transactions, and I just said I don't feel like updating them. And so I was like, I don't feel like updating them, so I'm just going to go and delete them, and I went and deleted them all, and then it fucked up with the PowerPoint somehow, because I don't know how to use PowerPoint, and it changed how things were working, and I was like, oh fuck it, I'll just put them back there, so I just Control Z'd them all back, and so yeah, you're stuck with them being unupdated. But yeah. Anyways, at 11 we have Flair and the Chelsea Charizards, who's 0-2 -8 right now, with losses to Hayes and DeWinchell. So his losses aren't that bad. His losses are actually to some of the top-ranked coaches, but he in his losses he's making some really strange plays, and really. His first game, I thought there was a few strange plays, but the prep was actually all around not terrible. His second game, I just had no fucking clue what was going on. He stayed in with his Gliscor turn 1 against Sableye, which always was going to be the lead, because that's just what you do when you're playing stall with a Sableye. You lead with your Sableye, and at the very least protect to get your Mega off, so that you can block hazards for the rest of the game. Flair not only did not realize that, but also did not acknowledge that DeWinchell brought knockoff last week, and probably would bring it again this week, and he just straight up knocked off his Gliscor's Toxic Orb, and Flair didn't even consider that was a possibility, it seemed. But just like he didn't consider that there was a possibility that Scarf Zoilus had led against his Infernape. So yeah, he really needs to scout and actually try and consider what could happen to him, and make plays to avoid it, because when you stay in risky scenarios and then bad things happen to you, it's your fault. You need to do your best to avoid these bad scenarios. Apart from that, last week he just brought absolutely nothing that could break stall, and DeWinchell really has a semi-stall team, so he just sat there while the Sableye just killed 3 Mons until he finally whittled it down far enough so that Sableye couldn't kill anymore. And so what DeWinchell did is he just went into his Milotic thereafter, and then walled the final 3 Mons. I know it wasn't exactly like that, but Milotic came in, walled him, and then Victini just came in and cleaned up. It was yeah, really poorly played, and just not at all prepped to take down DeWinchell's stall. So DeWinchell just stalled him, and that was it. Yeah, so even though his losses are to opponents who are ranked highly, I don't think he put up an extremely good effort, and there was some serious problems with his play in prep, especially last week. So I have him at number 11. At number 10, I have Kudo, who also has respectable losses to me and PETA. He actually didn't play badly at all against me. I don't think he has the mind to prep and play to have really challenged me, but he put up a very respectable effort. I try not to sound arrogant, but I don't know how else to say it. He didn't play badly. There wasn't anything with Flair where it was what are you doing, dude? Everything made sense. It was just not necessarily the optimal play to do, and not the optimal prep. Not very creative with the prep, but solid prep. Things made sense. The plays made sense. It's just no big plays or anything like that. So yeah, Kudo played solid. It was just wasn't good enough. I think it was significantly better than his first week, where PETA really kind of just walked all over him. But I think that also has a lot to do with the fact that PETA had a significantly better matchup with Kudo than I did. Not to take away from Kudo, like Kudo just, or not to take away from PETA. PETA just had to play his matchup and win, and that's exactly what he did. But Kudo had about zero extra drill checks, and Hippowdon walled his entire team pretty much. So I think he put up a much better effort in the second game, and I was a bit impressed. So I don't have him moving up, but I have Flare moving below him, while PK, who I was more impressed with, has moved up higher. But Kudo played fine. I think he just needs to get a bit more creative and really understand what his opponent is going to do to try and beat him. I think there's maybe a little bit of that. There's definitely, especially compared to last season, definitely improvement. I think Kudo is probably getting a bit more time too, because it seems like he's a bit more active and into it now. But yeah, I think he just needs to get a bit more creative and play a bit more aggressively. But all in all, a solid performance. I could definitely see him surprising some coaches, because his team is also quite deadly and a real pain in the ass to prep for, especially if you don't have very good checks to certain things. So I guess that's all. Moving up to number 9, we have Tepig plummeting 4 spots after taking a loss to PK. So yeah, he lost to Jeff week 1, but he played respectably. I had a few nitpicking problems with his prep, but he played okay for the most part. And then he came in and lost to PK, and not only did he didn't even play excruciatingly badly against PK, he just prepped really badly against PK. Like, it was a slightly advanced version of Flare against D-Winchell's stall. Like, D-Winchell obviously had stall, Flare brought no answers to his stall, and then just got fucked. Tepig really did the same thing. Like, he came in with, like, if you look at the bottom here, he's got quite a few breakers. I understand he changed Volk to Arcanine, he changed, what else did he change? What's his other guy? It was Passimian. He changed Passimian for Mesprit. That's it. But he's got some power there, some really fairly decent stall breakers, and he brought like tier 4s and like didn't bring his Mega Diancie, didn't hazard stack, didn't bring anything that really threatened stall, and then the stall just overwhelmed him, and there was nothing he could do about it because he just didn't bring anything that beat stall. And PK obviously has a stall team. So yeah, I think he really just under-prepped for the stall that PK was bringing, and PK didn't even really have to make any big plays. He just sat there and stalled him, and there's nothing that he could do about it because he didn't bring stall breakers or wall breakers or really anything that got to PK. Something that I didn't appreciate was that Tepig after was saying like the only way to beat me is with toxic stall, and well, A, you're going up against a stall team, so you can't just it's like what were you expecting? It's a stall team. You played the stall team and lost the stall. Or do you think you're gonna come on, man? But then you came up against a stall team, Dark Pulse Tangrowth like 3 times with your Greninja and let it die. It was one of your better breakers. Just tried to taunt everything while poisoned with Noivern, and then eventually died. Didn't set up hazards with Fortress. Didn't set up hazards with Gren. Didn't bring your Diancie. Of course you're gonna lose the stall. So yeah. Also, another small problem I had was in his commentary versus Jeff. And although I can't see his commentary versus PK, I feel like it could be the same thing. He really kind of discredits his opponent a lot, where if his opponent ever makes a play against him, especially when it's like probably the right time to make an aggressive play, because Tepig oftentimes is in a scenario where he can't risk a certain thing. If his opponent understands that Tepig is in a scenario where he won't risk a certain thing and predicts him to not, then that's a good play by them to understand the scenario. But Tepig seems to, like, anytime one of those scenarios occurs, he's like, oh, shoot, I should have just made the aggressive play and, like, stayed in there and not risked that. But, like, the reason your opponent made the play was because it was a bad play for you to risk that. So he really kind of discredits his opponents and doesn't seem to, like, understand the mentality. Rather, just like the right play was what worked out every single time, not necessarily what was the play that gave you better odds to winning the game. So yeah, a lot of things, like, Tepig's a very good battler, and I think his team, like, because I rated his team pretty lowly to begin with, is kind of holding him back a little bit. I think he's kind of starting to, at the beginning he said he thought he had enough bulk to really make it work, but I think he's starting to realize that's probably not true. And his prep has definitely been lackluster too, so he really needs to up it. I do think he's definitely one of the better battlers, so he can really get things going, but there's definitely some problems as of right now. So I have him down at number 9. Number 8, I have PK and the Comeback Kratos, who took down Tepig with stall. Now, I'm not going to get into a debate whether, like, he's bad or, like, didn't even need to do anything to win with stall. Like, he obviously needed to prep for what Tepig brought and, you know, play the matchup well enough. I think Tepig made it pretty easy on him by really not bringing anything that made it hard to beat his stall. But, I mean, yeah, in the end he won. I think maybe one small thing he could have changed was, I don't even know if, oh, his team's not updated too. His Don fan either didn't have Ice Shard or wasn't clicking it against Noivern. Maybe if it didn't kill, then it was the better play to not do that to preserve your spinner. And if that's the case, then correct me. I haven't run the calcs, but yeah, that might have been good to have. But apart from that, he played fine. He did what he needed to do to win. He even made some aggressive plays. Yeah. He gave Tepig the vengeance from the Season 1 where he Fire Blasted my Metagross with an Altaria and Fire Blasted Tepig's Fortress with Mega Altaria, which is kind of cool. So PK is definitely on the upswing. From post-draft, I told him he really either needs to commit to his stall or become more offensive, and it was kind of an in-between when he made his roster moves. He dropped, like, Arcanine for Arcanine and someone else for Lycanroc, and Arcanine Vikavolt for Lycanroc and Donphan. So it could go either way, I thought, because Donphan's definitely a mon that works both on offense and stall. Lycanroc's definitely more of a stall mon, or definitely more of an offensive mon. But he definitely brought much more heavy stall in this game than he did offense. But also, at the same time, it worked out for him, and he was able to beat Tepig quite convincingly. I also appreciated that he brought defensive Selly to the stall game rather than offensive, which just made no sense week 1. And as you saw, Selly put in a fuck ton of work. So the direct change right there paid off. So yeah, I have PK moving up 3 spots because he took down Tepig, which, I don't know, in past seasons would be much more impressive. We'll see if he's able to get back onto form, but I don't think Tepig's in top form right now at all. Moving up to number 7, we have Robot Boy and the Granbuls. He's 1-1. Probably should be 0-2. I have the hacks in parentheses there. He hacks Jolteat. He's actually, like, he played a solid game against Reggie. I just had a problem with, like, his prep in order to take down Reggie's team just wasn't there, so he really had a hard time beating it. This time he did bring some solid breakers, like Slowking. He had his Garchomp there. The Garchomp was banded, so it ended up doing a lot of damage, but it didn't come in enough to really force Jolteat to sack anything. The Slowking was a cool set, but he let it get toxic, and it ended up not being able to really do anything in the long run, although it did almost break the Mantine. So I don't think he did a terrible job prepping to break Jolty's team this week. I think he just needed to maybe play it a bit more aggressively. But Jolty on the other hand played it very aggressively and played a really good game and kind of dominated Robot Boy all the way up until the end. I think if Robot Boy was able to bring in his pincer more often and be a bit more aggressive, possibly get some momentum on his team going, although he doesn't have that many very good momentum options, he could probably pressure the Flygon a lot, or trying to threaten it out with HP Ices from the Rotom or something, so that he could get Volt Switches off, something like that. But bringing his pincer often safely with momentum, he could have put in a lot of work, because like I said in the post-draft rankings, his Jolty's flying resistance is Zebstrika. That's not what you want on your stall team. So I think if Pincer had gotten in more often, he could have won the game without the use of hacks. Unfortunately, he did win the game with hacks. I think Robot Boy himself would probably say he really didn't. I think he did say he really didn't deserve to win the game. I don't think he even played that bad of a game, especially like the way he played his Rotom. He really kept it around forever and gave Jolty a headache. But he just wasn't able to. I don't think the prep was all the way there to break down Jolty's team. And it was definitely a good effort, and I saw the effort. I think he just needed a bit more organization and plan to all the way take it down. I think definitely Pincer and bring it in often was the mode to beat Jolty down, especially because Jolty really undervalues rocks. Yeah, I think that's about it. He got the win, but I think he probably should have lost. But in both losses, he played a respectable game. I could see where he was coming from in all of his plays. I think he just needed to up the prep and up the play level just a little bit for both of them. So yeah, I have him rated fairly high, even though I feel that even though he lost one game and probably should have lost the other. So up next I have PETA and Sesame Street Septiles, who lost to Jeff this week. They're moving down 3 spots. Not because losing Jeff was that bad, but just because other teams are moving up and they slightly overtook him. I don't think there's a giant gap here, and PETA can definitely start climbing again if he proves himself. It's just that when you lost that game, it just loses you out some spots when other people are climbing. So yeah, the loss to Jeff, he didn't play the game badly at all, I don't think. But I think he lost the game in prep though. And the problem was that he seemed there was no real clear win condition on his team. Probably the closest thing was the Delphox, but it didn't seem like there was anything he was doing to really try and clear the way for the Delphox. The Delphox just more seemed to be a revenge tool for Lopunny, and although it did successfully do that and was able to actually almost have a decent shot of winning the game late game, you don't want your win condition to really be a Scarf Delphox, especially when you're have the breaker. You're almost built around the breaker sweeper core of Excadrill Garchomp. I think he really needed to bring his Garchomp here to pressure the Skarmory, because the Skarmory was always going to wall the Excadrill for days. And you saw in the game, it got in against the drill. The drill just sat there, and he was like, okay, I'll just throw up some spikes on you. He didn't even have SD, and even if he did, it didn't matter because it had Whirlwind. But at least he could have given him a reason to Whirlwind him out instead of just sitting there and setting up spikes all over his face. But yeah, what Garchomp could have done is really pressured the Skarmory and put Jeff in a scenario where he either needs to take damage on Skarmory, which is critical for Excadrill later, or he needs to And even then, Skarmory like can't really threaten Chomp, so Chomp really had a good time breaking this game. He either needed to try and throw out Skarm and make Skarm do something to break it or sack or something. But yeah, the fact that Chomp didn't come when it had a fairly good offensive matchup and really could have taken down or at least heavily damaged his Skarm. I think the Skarm was running counter to try and hit it back, but like counter is probably his best option, and it still even was like if he would just SD up a bunch of times, there's nothing the Skarm could have done. So Chomp really could have put Jeff in a bad scenario and put Excadrill in a scenario to win, and it just didn't happen. So I think PETA really missed out on that element of that Skarm was always going to wall the drill unless you had something that made the Skarm come out and actually have to deal with something. And he didn't make the Skarm come out, so Skarm just sat in the back all pretty until the drill came out. So try it. I guess the advice, because I feel PETA for the most part plays games fairly well. I think what he needs to do is consider before the game starts what his opponent's going to do to check his primary win conditions, and think how he's going to weaken them, because he didn't really seem to have a plan to weaken the Skarmory, but also plan to win with the Excadrill. So Excadrill was like worth -1 mons here because it just came in and let Skarmory get spikes for absolute free. It did nothing. So yeah, that's about it for PETA. Sorry for the jump cut right there. On to Jolty, who played against Robot Boy this week, and lost to a quarter chance to hit himself in paralysis on his Flygon against the Pinsir, and the Pinsir just SG'd up on it. Which, to be fair, Robot Boy made the right play in SDing in case he hit himself. That was the right play to make. Like if you have an out through hacks, you take it. But yeah, Jolty definitely deserved that game, and I think pretty much everyone recognizes it. And Jolty really played excellently throughout the game. He made the aggressive plays he needed to. I feel like a lot of people in the server are really afraid to play aggressively or make aggressive plays a lot of the time, besides like maybe Tepig. I think Jolty really is one of the only people who will actually take risks, and a lot of times that's what you need to do to win games. So I can definitely appreciate that. So yeah, I think he definitely should have won his last week's game, quite dominantly in fact. It was definitely a major issue in prep to not have the Cobalion be faster than the Pinsir, especially like when Pinsir's the greatest threat to your team and you have an option that doesn't die of the quick attack that needs to be faster than the Pinsir. So that was a massive mistake by Jolty. So you definitely he definitely discredits him there, but I think other than that he played a fine game and did what he needed to do to win. He just got unfortunate. And his week 1 game was against me, and I don't think he still like played excellently and played aggressively. He didn't come out with the win, but he was damn close to it. So yeah, some people may argue that he's rated way too highly for being 0-2, but I think the level he's playing on is in this area. And he definitely should be 1-1, which fits in here anyways. So yeah, I have him up at number 5. Number 4, I have Reggie, who lost to Hazy this week. Reggie, I wasn't very impressed with Reggie this week. Reggie had a very good matchup, really. He had answers to he had Orlando, which walled most of his team. He had a Gallade, which had an incredibly good offensive matchup. He had a Talonflame, which could revenge most of his team. He had T-Tar, which would shut down Zapdos. He had really all the tools he needed to beat Hazy. He just really got outplayed and didn't bring good enough prep to stop him. He just didn't bring what he needed to stop Hazy's sweepers. He made some weird plays, like throwing up rocks against Cart while it's set up. And really, he got a bit lucky to even come close to beating Hazy. He should have. There was a 50% chance that he lost 3 mons to the Cart. He didn't end up critting the Sacred Sword, but he could have lost 3 mons right there. He should have lost, I believe it was 4-0, had the Mega Horn not missed the Glade. Or no, it would have been 3-0 because the Mega Horn didn't kill, and he would have killed the Scully. But at least he would have it would have been 3-0 instead of 1-0. But he did get some hacks. But yeah, not the best game from Reggie this week. Yeah, I think he just needs to play more aggressively and really get his threats in and apply pressure. He seemed far too happy to sit on the back foot and really like fight losing battles, like ice beaming a Gastrodon down when it was toxic. It was never going to kill. Not getting his Gallade in, even though his Gallade was probably going to claim a kill every time he got in. I think Scarf Talonflame was also good bring.
Let's go bug Brian. Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
What's your favorite pest? And company.
Where is he?
He was crawling after me. Mary's here. You might want to come down and say hello.
Alright. So at number 4, I have Reggie, who lost to Hazy this week and really got quite dominated. I think Reggie had a really good matchup too, which made it like even a bit worse to lose this so badly. He had a Lando which really walled almost, or at least a lot of Hazy's threats. He had a T-Tar that really could have kept Zapdos from doing anything this match. Pursued it, shut it down, everything like that. He had a Gallade which had an incredibly good offensive matchup and could have just probably claimed every time it came in. He had Talonflame, which if it came Scarfed could revenge the majority of Hazy's threats, and he just didn't. He decided to bring Electrode as a win condition, which I appreciate the creativity, but you have a Mega Gallade that is far more effective. You're just wasting your time with Electrode. Your Mega Gallade absolutely butt fucks his team, and you brought the Electrode. So yeah, he really did not play very aggressively at all, and was really happy to just kind of play on the back foot and play losing battles, like trying to kill Gastrodon with Kyurem until Kyurem was basically dead. Just spending way too much time with Ferrothorn in, not really doing anything to get his threats in, like Mega Gallade, which could have pretty much claimed upon any time it came in. And he just really was not prepared at all to deal with Hazy Sweepers, which were made to beat standard checks. So in the end, he lost 1-0, but he needed a large amount of hacks to even get it that close. There was a 50% chance Cart was going to claim one more Mon if he crit the Sacred Sword against Pharaoh. There was also the Mega Horn miss, which caused Reggie to almost come back and win it through hacks. He didn't, but he claimed an extra 2 differential points he wouldn't have had otherwise, I believe. Yeah. So, yeah, not an incredibly impressive performance by Reggie. So I don't know who he's playing next week, but he'll definitely be looking forward to bouncing back against them. I think he definitely needs to really recognize what his win conditions are, though, and do a good job of getting them in. He had a similar problem last week where he doesn't really apply pressure to his opponent or put them in a bad scenario. He really was just content to sit there and let his opponent do what they wanted, and then that he was just overwhelmed by the setup spam of Hazy. So, yeah. Moving on to number 3, we have DeWinchell and Greenwood Picos. So DeWinchell's in a weird place where he's played 2 of the lower coaches, but he also dominated them. So he's really going to need to get a stronger test opponent before he really solidifies himself at this rank, because at this point I'd say he's highly volatile. Like if he loses a game here, then he's sudden like to a decent coach, like say a Pita, Reggie, any Jolty, someone like that, and then he's going to plummet, because at that point his wins are PK Flair and his losses are like one of those coaches. So, but at the moment he's played 2 lower coaches and dominated them, and they just didn't bring anything to beat his stall. So I feel it's going to be a similar. It may end up being a similar story to Jolty last season, where he started off really hot by playing weak coaches, and then he had to come up against strong coaches who actually made efforts to break Jolty's stall, and then he just collapsed. So maybe DeWinchell learns from that mistake and preps better or more aggressively or something so that the better coaches have a harder time dealing with him than they did Jolty last season. But as of now, since he's 3-0, has the highest differential of anyone else, or 2-0 I meant, not 3-0, I have him up high. And no major mistakes from him even at this point. He did what he needed to do with stall to beat lower end coaches who weren't prepared to take down his stall. He just sat there in front with a check until he killed everything, and that's all you really have to do. And they didn't bring counterplay to that, so can't fault him for that. So yeah, until he plays high, like I said, once he plays higher level competition, it'll be more clear where he actually stands. But at the moment, this is 2-0. I have him up here. At number 2, I have Hazy in the Puerto Rico Frokies, who beat Reggie pretty badly. They ended up winning only 1-0, like I said before, with Reggie, but it probably deserved to be higher. Reggie just really was not ready to take on the offense he brought. I think Hazy was a bit careless in the game. He sacked his arrow kind of meaninglessly in an attempt to get Cartana to set up on Pharaoh, which is like a respectable play, but there's also like possibility that Pharaoh has Thunder Wave. Also, it probably was just better to go Zapdos and keep your Mons alive, because Zapdos checked Ferrothorn for the most part perfectly fine. So yeah, just all in all, he played the game a bit rushed, but he did do what he had to do to win. He brought the threats he needed to win and beat Reggie fairly convincingly. So I have him at number 2, having a very good win against Reggie and a decent win against Flair. So yeah, I guess that's about it. At number 1, I have Jeff maintaining his number 1 position. Just because there's no reason to move him down. He has the 2 most impressive wins out of anyone else against Tepig and Pita. And he played the game pretty much just fine. I think maybe I forgot to mention the Will-O-Wisp play in Pita. That was also a good play by Pita. So I don't know, Pita might not see it if he doesn't watch the whole entire thing, but good play with the Will-O-Wisp on the Sucker Punch. It's the nice, smart, and spicy play. And that was definitely a big misplay by Jeff to not see it coming, because it was a little bit obvious, but it ended up crippling him and making it much harder for him to deal with the Lottie. I think had Jeff actually scouted for that, Pita would have been beaten quite badly, but he didn't. And Pita didn't bring the guard chomp, like I said before, so it made Jeff's job a lot easier. He didn't really need to do anything. He maybe could have played his Nidoqueen a bit more aggressively, but even then his Nidoqueen did fine. He also made a fairly big misplay at the end by clicking return, or not clicking return against the Delphox, when return into Drain Punch probably killed Excadrill. So yeah, I guess there's that. And that put the the Delphox into Blaze range, and it ended up taking out the Lopunny, making the game closer than it had to be. But Jeff still got the win against an impressive opponent, and for the most part looked good throughout the game with a few small misplays, but he did what he needed to do to win and has the most impressive wins and looks in pretty good form. So I have him at number 1 still. So those are the week 2 rankings, and I'll see you next week.